Hello, I'm back. What do you want? Anyway, I was reading The Guardian comments, and there's a Guardian, he's a real lefty of the lefty Guardian people, and he was on about the whole line of punishing the rich again, that sort of thing. He's certainly of that ilk, the punish the rich people. This time he wanted a wealth tax or something. So I had a little, the normal thing on this is the wealth tax, you can't really discuss it without first going to inheritance tax. So I think it should be discussed something like this. Somebody proposes extra taxes for doing things. Then you go, inheritance tax. And they go, what? And you go, inheritance tax. And they go, no. And then you go, okay, you don't want inheritance tax. No. Okay, so taxes, talk to me. Wealth tax, but not inheritance tax. No. And then you set the discussion off on a decent footing, as in they want more money from somewhere, but they don't want inheritance tax. But anyway, we're not going to do that today because I've only just come back and I'm a bit tired. So down this column we get to somebody who said, with lots of thumbs up, I remember thinking like this when I was Owen's age. Then I grew up. Owen is the writer of the article, and basically he's, as I say, he wants lots more money for the government to spend on people that could do with it. In principle, a good idea. But when it comes down to it, it bumps into all sorts of trickiness. So I think when we were all younger, we were all rather idealistic, were we not? I don't know. I wasn't. I didn't think about things like this. Anyway, I can imagine that most people would be. I remember thinking like this when I was Owen's age, and then I grew up. Which is a bit cruel, but it's based on at least something. But then we come to Wendy somebody or other, who says, in this instant, does growing up mean I tried my hand at exploiting others and liked the feeling of power that it gave me? Or does it mean I decided to live by a higher standard and share my good fortune with others? Yeah, two very different versions of being grown up. Which do we choose? And it just seemed to me that, I'll tell you what it did to me. It made me remember what working was generally like when I was in what I call England. You start at a job, so you're on the bottom line. You're a worker. And when we come to workers, they work. And being a worker is right, fortunately, for most people. Then you can get, let's say, promoted to be assistant manager of the workers. That's the kind of thing it goes. All different industry types have got different ways of going about it, but the structure's mainly the same. It's a great block of people at the bottom. Then you get the first bit of middle management, which is the assistant manager type. Now, it seemed to me, I know there's more to it than this, but that the assistant manager is chosen normally by the manager to be the sort of person that will always arrive on time and will be willing to work a bit later. And I know the worth ethic of the Western world has gone a bit crazy, where you're expected to work till midnight or all that sort of stuff. But basically, I'm keeping it simple. So your assistant manager can be or should be relied on to be there at, say it's 9 to 5, be there at 9 and be there at 5 to see if anything else needs doing, and then seeing that within reason it could be done. But being work on time is of greatest importance, because you have to see that the block of workers arrive on time, and you can't see that they arrive on time if you arrive late. The great block of workers, let's talk about their 9 to 5. The advantage of staying in the great block of workers is, as long as you arrive at 9 and go at 5 and aren't a complete pain in the arse during the 9 to 5, you can generally just not have a lark, but it should be a light-hearted affair. And I know in the Western world now it isn't. Even this block get absolutely crushed. But basically, you just sit, take your orders, do your orders. There's no great responsibility, and go home. And don't think about work at all. Middle management, the first bit, the assistant manager, first has to keep an eye on time. If you can't, if you're in a clock watcher, the 9 to 5 thing, if you're going to leave at 5 on the dot, you've got to make sure you're there at 9. You can't be a clock watcher at 5 and not a clock watcher at 9. So the assistant manager has got to see that everyone arrives on time, so has got to arrive on time, him or herself. No great shakes. And what else might the assistant manager do? Come up with some ideas that can just shuffle things around slightly, ameliorate them to make them slightly more efficient. And nothing much more can be expected of an assistant manager. Then we go up to the manager, who obviously wants people to arrive on time. Being on time is crucially important to discipline. But then the manager can be expected to have bigger ideas about how things can be done better. Where am I going with this? Nowhere, I don't think. It's growing up. You grow up into your natural position, as it were, of being in the bottom block, in the next block up, or in the management block, or above that is the bosses. And depending how you've been born and bred, depends whether you have what it takes to want to be however higher up the pyramid you need to go. Now that's growing up, but most people find that growing up really means, how can I put this, growing into the acceptance of this pyramidical structure. Growing up is being content with being a drone worker in the bottom block, understanding that you've got to be there at 9, if you want to leave at 5, and you can't dick around too much, and you haven't got much freedom because you've got to do as you're told. It's a hard life, but for most people, they seem to find that the drone's life is fine for them. It doesn't punish their brain cells too much. They can get into it and do it for 40 or 50 years. Life goes by. You grow into it. You don't really grow up. You grow into the acceptance of this. As soon as you become assistant manager, it's a bit more, you've already gone one step. And it's always going to be uncomfortable because you're always sandwiched between the working block and the manager. You're the go-between. You get a bit more money, but you've got to be more disciplined than all the workers, and sometimes have even more ideas than the manager, who will steal your ideas. But you've got to accept this. But accepting it is very difficult because you've started on the ladder or on the going up. The whole idea of being an assistant manager is almost setting yourself that you're not happy to be a drone. And you're almost saying, I'm not happy to be an assistant manager either. I also want to be a manager. There are a few people, obviously, that will be content to stay at assistant manager level. But most want to then get up to manager level. The trouble is that as soon as you start dealing manager level, you're dealing with people that weren't happy here, they weren't happy here, and the chances are they're not happy at being a manager either. Basically, management generally are a pain in the arse because they lose touch with the great block of people who don't really want to do much and want to do the minimum and don't even particularly want to do it well. Some do, some don't. But there'll be ones that'll just sit in the corner and do a very efficient job, and others will mess about. It's just, you get life's people down here. But as soon as you start being a manager, it's a pain. It's a pain. And you really have to be quite disciplined to be content with where you are in a management structure. What am I talking about here? In this instance, what does growing up mean? I tried my hand at exploiting others, liked the feeling of power that it gave me. You do get a feeling of power when you're a manager, and it's something not to get carried away with, because for many reasons, the main reason is you'll always be managing people, and people can very easily cut the string between them and any manager they have. In fact, they want to, because they want the solidarity of being in the block at the bottom. But if you want to have ideas of how better to do things and how things can work more smoothly and agreeably for everybody, you always have to keep that connection with the workers. And it's a bit of a parenting thing. I think modern parents have got a bit too friendly with their children. And by doing this, their management position has been undermined, because there are always either a lot of incoming stuff from the children, or if you do it when you're a manager, you get a lot of incoming stuff from the workers. And it's a very hard thing to manage, to maintain the connection, but maintain control of the direction of things. You've got to accept a certain amount of upcoming to the middle management, but you've also got to really make sure that the main flow is from you, although it might be minimal, downwards. It's a very strange thing. You've got to make the appearance as though you're accepting upwards inputs, but really you've got to maintain the power of the downward inputs. And it's all things like that that makes management be tricky and hard to be content with, because you can see that the manager can put his feet up on his desk when you can't, etc., etc., and get closer to the boss or the bosses, where everything becomes seemingly freer and easier. It's almost like it goes like this. You've got the block of workers, which are seemingly quite free and easy. And when you're in middle management, you really are constrained. And you think that, and then the bosses have got more freedom, like the workers have got freedom, and it's only you that's constrained. That's not really true, because all people that are working are obviously always constrained. And very constrained, dependent on their personality. I think that's enough. That's nearly 15 minutes. I'm over the top. And it was just a video to say, I'm back. Oh, I'm back. So that's it. Go and manage yourselves. Bye.